So why is community developed sex education important? I'm here with Yael Rosenstock, and I'm Kathy Bartoli from the intimacydojo.com. Yael, you're speaking at Woodhull Sexual Freedom Summit in a month and a little bit more about community developed sex education. Why is it important, and why should people pay attention to that?
So I believe sex education in general is of the utmost importance. I believe that consent and desire-based sex education is a way to eradicate sexual violence. But I also believe that my experience and my angle at which I come at sex education is not going to be a one-size-fits-all. Mm-hmm. And so it's so important that when we're doing sex education and creating curriculum, that we are creating it alongside with anyone who is going to be using it. Yeah. And so our practice is that we survey students, we find out what it is that they are interested in doing, and by we, I mean me and students, survey students to see what it is that they want us to be practicing. We invite students of different religions, different races, different backgrounds. We want to make sure that we have people who identify as conservative and religious in the groups, and we break out into different spaces to make sure that the work is addressing the different needs.
Oh, wow.
And ideally, we would do that in a large scale. Right now, we're still very, very grassroots. But in order for it to be effective, people need to feel comfortable and safe and like their belief systems are respected.
I really love that, because I do know that there's a little bit of conservatives should just make deal with the liberal, like if it's a more liberal person teaching, that conservative people should just like make do and stretch themselves, because I do have a problem with people that are very isolated, but that's my own personal problem, not actually their problem. What age group are you working with?
So right now I work with mostly Queens College students in this project that we're referencing. And so they range from just about ending their 17th year, some of them are still 17 when they enter, through to full adulthood. We have older adult learners, right? Those who come back after retirement and take courses. Yeah. And so the spaces are often mostly 20-year-olds, but then we will also have someone in their 50s, 60s, 70s hop on in and be part of the group as well.
That's wonderful. I love that. And how many groups do you break it up into? Because I know that, if you ideally it'd be one-on-one and you'd be teaching exactly to that person's needs, but we have limited resources and time. So, how do you decide how much to break up into and how many groups to have?
Sure. So I do love one-on-ones, but I love groups because it actually brings in so much information that I can't possibly have. So I'm very useful in that there's all this knowledge that I have attained over the years, but the opportunity for people to speak to one another and relate has been really crucial in our work. And so right now I think we have 10 different teams, is what we call them. So consent and rape culture is one team, desire and pleasure is another, rigidity and abstinence is another, because part of our sex positivity is that you are positive in decisions that you make around sex, whether that is to have sex or to not have sex.
Right.
And so we host different events that are geared towards different groups. And my co-founder, Marcia Suarez, who is a kick-ass former Queens College student, is currently away doing immigration justice work. So this semester was a little bit slower than others, but we hosted our second annual Sex Day. And we had 2 events plus 5 discussion groups. And so that day had 7 different specific topics and or populations in mind. And then so each time we host an event, that is, it's often topic specific unless we're asked to do something for a group.
Oh wow, that's wonderful. And how do you deal with it? Because I know that some of my family is very conservative, and they feel like people should not have any sex ed at all. Like that God gave us these urges, and you'll figure if you're with the right person, it will feel good, and you'll figure it out. And it's not my belief system. I think that we should spend at least as much time learning as we do learning to drive a car as finding out how our bodies work and how to keep them safe and healthy and consent. How do you deal with people that are like, no, we shouldn't be teaching it all?
Well, the university is located in Queens, and I think while there are many people who are coming as recent immigrants from countries that have very conservative religious values, I think a lot of the students don't necessarily hold that conservative value. We actually, somewhat of a side note, we had a program that we ran between Democrats and Republicans, or liberals and conservatives, to have them come together and speak, but we also did not have anyone who aligned with neo-Nazis or the KKK, right? That isn't the type of population that we have.
Yeah.
So those who come to my events, or to our events, aren't the kind generally who are like, sex ed should not be in existence, because
they just wouldn't show up to your events.
They wouldn't show up.
Yeah.
But we do have one specific group that we're working on developing further, and it's tricky. It's specifically religion and culture. And so last year it was run by one Muslim student who does wear hijab, so like this is a practicing woman, and one Orthodox Jewish woman who is a non-traditional Orthodox Jewish woman, but she's still an Orthodox Jewish woman. And the idea was to bring in more discussions around things like menstruation and consent, not to be away from things like penetration and orgasm, but to have those conversations first and to create a basis. And the idea was also for those groups to have them be gender separate. So we were still looking for someone to represent the masculine persons of these religions, because we were aware that in both of these communities, it is often important to have these spaces segregated for belief systems and comfort. So as of right now, we haven't had anyone come up to us and say, you should go to hell or like close this down. We overall received 20 looks.
Yeah.
People will walk by us and like run. Over at club day or at some sort of event like that, they'll snicker, like, oh no, that's not for me. And then I yell out, but we do virginity and abstinence. We do self-defense. Like, what's not for you?
Yeah, you're kind of covering the entire gamut. Yeah.
So we haven't come across that kind of, serious backlash. We've had people question some of our belief systems or methods, but overall, if people come into the space, it's because they want to in some way be in that space.
Well, and I love that you're teaching. There's so little information out there about so many things, but like even menstruation, like I keep seeing this meme on Facebook where there's like some men are telling women they should just hold their periods in and stop being lazy, and I'm just like, every time I see it just hurts. It's like, no, this is not, like, there's so little knowledge. A lot of people, like even pretty thoughtful people, just don't know. And I know I had I think they gave us 2 hours. When I was coming through fifth grade, I think the boys went in one room and the girls sat in the other, and the pink book with the little fallopian tubes, and they told us a little bit. They didn't talk about anything like the period just flows out, or it wasn't anything that detailed. And it's kind of scary to have I know more about my teeth, education wise. We were taught you need to floss, and there's enamel and dentin and roots, and we're taught so much more about other parts of our body, but the reproductive system is a scary taboo place, and I don't think anyone feels secure when they don't understand their bodies.
I completely agree, and I also want to say this is another example in which it's so important to have these conversations out loud with others. I had a American Girl book, so I was counting the days till I started bleeding. I was testing the thickness of my discharge as a kid. I was like, this is happening. I was a year early in my estimation. I was like, where are you? So my experience was very much an expectant experience, where I was like, this is going to happen and it's okay. And mom told me about it, and she got me this book, and it's all good. And so the idea that someone might think that we can hold the blood had never even crossed my mind.
Yeah. Because you were aware. I'm really glad that you got that education.
No, and I realize that I'm very lucky. I know many young women have just looked down, or young people with vaginas have looked down and said, I'm dying.
Yeah.
I'm going to die. I am bleeding uncontrollably, possibly. From
yes, and they
this,
don't know.
Body part.
Yeah, they're afraid to tell anybody, or they're ashamed.
So ours was actually for that specific group. The idea was to bring people. For one of the events was to bring people to a mikvah, which is a Jewish cleansing ritual. After a person has their period, then they go get cleansed before they can then have sex with their partner. And that was just an interesting thing to show across the religions, because it's not within Muslim practice. This cleansing, this specific public cleansing ritual is not something that continues into this other religion. And but I'm also working with someone else because I did just start my company, Kaleidoscope Vibrations, and a lot of it has to do with adult sex education. And so I am speaking to another person who wants me to work with them on developing curriculum for destigmatizing menstruation for those who do menstruate. And so I think we might eventually also bring this out to a larger group, but the importance of not feeling shame around your body. There's a lot of stigma around odor and around how it goes, and all these products that are made to have vaginas smell like flowers. And
they don't smell like flowers naturally.
Smell like flowers. Flowers are lovely, but not in your vagina.
It's so bad for the chemistry.
No, bad chemistry and like that kind of stuff. I am also writing a book right now, and I ended up adding a chapter or a section dedicated to things like sexual health and body, because that wasn't the intention of the book. But I realized there's so much lack of information or false information that it felt irresponsible not to include some basic physical information in it.
Yeah. Well, and even for people that don't menstruate, like I've had partners that that didn't menstruate but were very comfortable with menstruation. That was really sexy, and they understood that I might have cramps, and it wasn't blamey. It's just like, hey, would you like a tummy rub, or would you let me just cuddle you, or what, and just like, oh, let me go grab a pad for you. And just like, oh, wow, you're not horrified and ashamed. It made me feel so cared for.
And I do think like there's this desire for particularly presenting and femme identifying persons to be like, I am me, and all of my self-confidence comes from me, and all of my self-value comes from me, and I'm not supposed to get any from anyone else. But I've learned so much through relationships and partners, and I've been helped so much by them validating me. And like you're saying, right, that they made you feel comfortable and confident in your body's processes. And I do think that we lose something when we're like, it's all on your own. Like there's something wrong when you get that from someone else. Yeah.
Well, and I love that you're teaching in a group too, because we are community animals. Like we learn and feel safer. If I see all these other people talking about it, even if they're embarrassed, it lets my brain feel like, oh, I can talk about it, versus if I learn it one-on-one, I don't necessarily gain the skill to talk to someone else about it.
I love that. I completely agree. And I do think mixed genders, like having all genders in this space, those who do menstruate, those who don't, like all of that is so important to building that safety. Although I do respect single gender or single experience spaces completely, and I do host some of those as well. But I think it helps feed the desire to make whatever it is that we're discussing normal.
Yeah, well, I like that you're honoring people's cultural beliefs and practices, and also giving them people space to explore outside. It sounds like if they want to explore that, but they're not locked into that, and just getting to figure out what works for them. Because it could be like, I know the first time I was asking questions, I was really glad I had a one-on-one. I was working one-on-one with someone, and I just had so much shame about my body. I'd never really, because of abuse history, I never really explored, and I just said down there, I couldn't even use the words. And I had someone who was like, no, it's not Voldemort. Can you say the words? So like having a split.
Vagina, I'm sorry, that's funny.
Yeah. But you can, I just think they can work through some of their fears and shames, like they're not worried about the girls laughing at them or the boys laughing at them, so to speak. And then they could maybe mix and get more comfortable with that. So that's really powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is very validating. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm glad. No, this is exciting. I'm glad there's people out there doing this. Why did you decide that a Woodhull would be a good place to present this and share this?
I attended Woodhull for the first time last year, and I found it to be such a beautiful space. It was my year and a half of sex conferences. I attended, what's it called? The Desiree Alliance, which is the sex workers conference, which is unfortunately canceled this year due to safety issues, which is super unfortunate.
It's so sad. I'm sorry, my blood pressure goes up every time I think about all this mess.
No, it's terrible. I also attended and spoke there, and I did Quad S, so the Society for the Scientific Study of Sexuality, and then NSEC, National Sex Education. Yeah, in the Atlanta, in New Jersey, And they were all so different, but I loved the focus on social justice and I don't actually know what the makeup was overall, but I attended a lot of spaces and rooms that were POC led, and I thought that was something that was missing. from the two of the other conferences I attended.
Yeah.
And so I was very appreciative to see that, to see the justice involvement, to have this framed as an issue of freedom.
Yes.
All of that just spoke a lot to me because of most of my work is social justice oriented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find Woodhull just a very warm, friendly, but very inclusive space. So I'm always honored, and I get to meet amazing people like you there, which I love the networking, because it can get depleting when you're just fighting the fight in your hometown. You might have a couple people, that community aspect of coming together and seeing other people fighting different aspects, and like, I'm not alone, it's okay.
Yes, and particularly within this topic, I think that in New York, I'm very lucky to be surrounded by so many amazing individuals doing amazing work, and I never feel alone. I know there's the like the angry feminist on their own table type thing. I forget the saying, but my table is full.
Yeah.
Right? We're all there. But within this topic, that's something that's more, or I don't know as many people, so that it did feel like a sense of community.
Yeah, no, and I love the concept of just like, I mean, I hear a lot about sex ed and age appropriate sex ed, but I haven't heard a lot about honoring the different religions and cultural aspects, and I think that's really wonderful. I'm curious, like, if you have any good resources, would you be able to send me a couple links that I can put down below in the description for people to check out?
I will have to think about it.
Okay.
We haven't produced anything paper. We just we do them on our own.
Yeah.
And that'll be part of my discussion, right? We are super bare bones, super grassroots.
So if they want to know, they have to show up at Woodhull. Register now.
That's the only way that we've existed thus far.
Yeah.
I have applied to grants, and I haven't received anything large to make it more, organized in that fashion that we can be able to produce and share what we're working on.
Yeah.
But I will see if I have anything in our resource list about, you specifically asked me about religious groups, correct?
Religious and cultural aspects of sexuality, how do you, I do know a little bit about I have a few Orthodox Jewish friends, so I have a little bit of a clue, but I hadn't really thought about it that much, because it's mostly let's just teach people, but it is important to respect where people come from and what their beliefs are.
And so I will look to see for resources, but that's also the reason why our leaders are community leaders, right? So this idea that these people are the ones who are doing that research and working together to develop that kind of curriculum, because they A, know their population, and B, have a background in this religious knowledge that I don't have.
Yeah.
And so that's where their energies go. I'm not going to lead any of those. I'm Jewish, but very differently Jewish.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. But I really appreciate you organizing all of this and your generosity sharing this here and at Woodhull. I can't wait to hear your talk.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any last tips you want to add for people, or?
I do want to mention something.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I started my company, and I have a few projects with different students.
Uh-huh.
And so one of the projects that we started is called the Diverse Bodies Project.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and since we talked about being comfortable with your body and what have you, it's a photo interview project. For those who know Honey, it's kind of like Honey but naked, And so it is currently based in the New York area, so New York City. Anyone who's able to get into New York City, so if they're in Connecticut, New Jersey, what have you, and they're able to drive over or take the train or or however they get there, we are doing hour-long interviews and photo shoots. And we ask people about their relationship with their body, with society, with self, their journey with their body and what that's looked like.
Yeah.
And then we photograph that which they want photographed.
Wonderful. Is there a link so people can find out more or contact?
That link I can definitely send you. That one's easy.
Okay.
I can send that one.
So I'll put that below in the description.
Perfect. But people choose what body parts they want to show, if they want their face, if they want their name.
Nice.
Everything is decided by them. And before we are creating a book, so before the book goes to print, I'm going to ask everyone again, even though they signed consent forms, because we want to make sure everyone is 100% positive about that.
I love it. I love it. I really appreciate that. And I think there's a lot we can do to make people more comfortable with their bodies and how people are seen. So as a bigger person, I value that very much. So thank you. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below. I'll try to get Yael to answer them. And thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I really appreciate it.